What's going on, y'all? I've got some really cool buffs and changes for Hatterene and their pre-evolutions as well. But before I get into explaining my thought process and how they all function in game and why I chose these things, I do want to have a disclaimer for new viewers who have never seen anything about my ROM hacks before, to pause the video and check out the description. Also, shout out to you, by the way. I appreciate you clicking on the video. But yeah, I recommend you pause the video and read the description because it's got a lot of really important background context sort of information about the ROM hack and the way it's balanced, and why I make the decisions I do, and it'll just give you, a lot of important context. So give that a read, and then when you're done with that, when you're done with this video, not when you're done with that, when you're done with this video, I recommend you check out the links in the description. Don't click off now because it'll mess up the watch time, and that'll mess up, the algorithm and getting my videos out to more people. Speaking of, if you want to help me with that, I recommend you sub if you haven't already, like the video, drop a comment. All that stuff helps with the algorithm, helps boost my channel, and helps more people see my work. So definitely do that for me, please. But with all that being said, last thing for disclaimers is, yeah, check out the description because check out the description. I just said that. Check out the Google Sheet is what I mean to say, because you can see the move guide, which has all of the really important move buffs and changes organized into categories for your viewing convenience, and that is greatly impactful for how the game works. With all that being said, though, Hatterene got some really cool changes. It is so. One of the big things here is that I intentionally formed a duality with Grimmsnarl. So a lot of like competitive players might be thinking, why did you get rid of Magic Bounce? That's Hatterene's whole thing. And in a competitive sense, yes, I agree with you. But number one, so Hattrem doesn't count for overlap with other Psychic Fairies because it is technically an optional, evolution, but it's lesser. It's a little bit less of one compared to other ones. There's a lot of Pokemon like this in this game that are like optional evolutions, but it's more of one just because it's a semi-pseudo, so it kind of has to be. You definitely could. That Magic Bounce is definitely enough reason to keep it past level 40, and of course up until level 40 it's great, but past level 40, the main benefit it would just be Magic Bounce, and then it is also bulkier. I believe it is bulkier with the Violite. Yeah, it should be. So that's really cool too, I guess, but mostly just for that Magic Bounce utility. Ignoring, taunt on the AI and status moves on the AI and bouncing them back is all really useful. And it also gives you like a free trick room on the lead, whatever. Tons of fun ways you can abuse it. But I think Hatterene losing Magic Bounce to allow another fully evolved Psychic Fairy type to get it makes a lot more sense, because Hatterene makes sense for these three abilities really well. Meanwhile, there are other Psychic Fairies who I was maybe struggling to come up with 3 ability slots for them that are all useful, so that way I can free up Magic Bounce for them. I forget which one I have planned right at this moment for Magic Bounce, but there are like 8 of these fucking Psychic Fairies, so, gotta differentiate them. So no Magic Bounce for Hatterene. I prefer it on other Psychic Fairies. And Hattrem, again, that's also just a cool thing. Now, Hattrem is worth keeping past level 40 because of that Magic Bounce. But Berserk is obviously great as well. So logically, if you don't know anything about Hatterene, these abilities might seem weird for you. So I will type it in and show you the Pokedex, because I'm sure a lot of you do know this, but if you don't, the reasons I have the abilities Ruthless and Berserk here is because it's literally a ruthless Pokemon. It's super fucking like aggressive. So essentially, if you're too loud around it, you risk being torn apart by the claws on its tentacle. It's known as the Forest Witch. It slashes with claws enhanced by psychic power. It knocks out those that intrude in its home forest. You may have wandered into Hatterene's territory, forests that show no signs of living creatures. Like that's how the minute it senses hostility, it goes on the attack. It's the raging goddess. Lightning shoots down from its tentacles, beams like lightning, which is also why I threw on stuff like Thunder, Thunderbolt, and also because they get Nuzzle, so I think they can already technically harness a little bit of electric power. Anyway, yeah, that's why I chose the abilities Berserk and Ruthless. So Berserk is really cool with healing moves like Wish, Moonlight, Draining Kiss, and Giga Drain, or even just to outright like switch in, take a hit, get into Berserk range, and then click a Quick Claw boosted move, or a priority Specs, Pixie Dust, or Influx. Both of those are pretty good, but yeah, just like blowing something up with Quick Claw with Berserk is cool. However, once you get to later on in the game, for example, with special sets, right, like a Moonblast Berserk boosted, for example, or Eternal Beam Berserk boosted, is stronger than Ruthless Soul Crush, for example, but takes more setup and takes more HP. Meanwhile, with Ruthless, you can get the boost straight up without having to take any damage or stall or whatever, and that's obviously really good. So Ruthless is really fucking cool. Again, I already covered flavor-wise why it's cool, but it's also really good offensively because you've got all these guaranteed crit moves, which I want to cover in a second. But first, I actually want to talk about Hattrem and also just Tangling Hair, because people might be like, "Why'd you put mid-ass Tangling Hair on this guy instead of Magic Bounce, whatever?" So Tangling Hair is shared by both Grimmsnarl and Hatterene because their whole design, a lot of their design is based on how like they're made up of hair, right? Like Hatterene has the hair armor surrounding it, I guess, or this hair like cage, because the actual Hatterene's body is like super tiny inside there. But yeah, Hatterene is like got this whole hair fortress type thing, and if you read the decks, it talks about like using them like tentacles, sorry, using its hair like claws. So I think, touching it and then it like tangles you in or pulls you in with its hair, or its hand hair is really cool. And then Grimmsnarl is even more fitting for tangling hair. I mean, my man's whole thing is about like how he has this like hairs working like muscle fibers, and when they unfurl, it latches onto opponents as tentacles would. So I think both Grimmsnarl and Hatterene make perfect sense for tangling hair, and I think that it's a really underutilized ability. With 3 ability slots, I think I can justify giving it to things, because with Movie Learner, you can, fully. I mean, there's the best and most obvious way to use tangling hair is just obvious, like eject button, teleport type shenanigans, right? Because Hatterene itself is not very fast. Even after a -1 speed drop, it's not going to be outspeeding most things. Grimmsnarl is different. It's a different story. But for Hatterene, the most use I would say is for team support, which is good because it allows you, because in this game you're limited to 1 Scarf and 1 Quick Claw per team. So using that for more speed control is good. Definitely more situational, but it's still fun to use, and you could definitely make some good use of it. And then early game, it's even better with stuff like Hattrem and Hatena, so that's all really cool. But speaking of Hattrem, Skill Link is a really cool option that I chose because I wanted them to still be a mixed attacker as a baby. But of course, Hattrem logically doesn't fit having I would say the absolute max. Because if you do read the Pokedex, essentially the reason I give it Skill Link is an homage to the deck entries talking about how it knocks you out. So it'll silence you violently. One blow from one of these braids would knock out a professional boxer. Using the braids on its head, it pummels foes to get them to quiet down. It pummels them senseless with its braids to silence them. So I think Hattrem using its hair to pummel you is really cool. So 65 attack might seem mid in comparison to 96 special attack until you realize that at level 20, you get 125 base power moves. You have Brutal Swing, which is just a flat out 125 power dark recoil move. Dark type double edge, 120 power, excuse me. It's 125 in sweltering, but yeah, 120 recoil move, and that's also a nod to the fact that it gets Brutal Swing by evolution in vanilla. Of course, Brutal Swing is much different now, but yeah, really cool there. The animation actually comes from Darkest Lariat now, if you're curious, by the way, but it's the same concept of just like a big angry swing attack, or like spinning type attack, or just flailing around, whatever. So Brutal Swing, super cool early. I mean, level 20, even though you only have 65 base attack, it highly outdamages like a lot of your other moves. Like Dismal Cry is your dark type equivalent coverage move on the special side, which is literally half the power, which is meaning, you're heavily outdamaging Dismal Cry, and then you also heavily outdamage. You don't heavily outdamage Aura Sphere, but you do outdamage Aura Sphere. Of course, it depends on the situation, right? Like if you're fighting something with a higher physical defense, you'd probably rather use a special Hattrem. If you're fighting something with a lower special defense, you'd probably rather use physical with Skill Link. So, not to mention, special sets don't require you to run Skill Link, while physical sets kind of do. Not entirely, but I mean, if most of the cases with that pummel and the wallop. But regardless, 125 base power fairy move at level 20 with 65 attack is still really, really, really strong. Honestly, maybe a little bit too early, but I think it's really fucking cool because of the deck entries and Hattrem's whole design thing about being, this powerful physically. I think it's cool to give them that early, strong physical option to really encourage using that physical attack stat. And then Pummel is the same thing. So Pummel and Wallop are essentially just multi-hit your fairy and fighting moves. So good coverage, and then you've got your fairy stab there. I didn't give them a physical Psychic. Well, I don't really see Think Fast on them. What are the options? I think there's no other options with Zen Head, but yeah, whatever. I could give them Zen Head earlier than the TN. Feels forced. I think it's fine. I wish Dizzy Punch had Dizzy Punches existed in this game, but it doesn't. I don't have any moves to turn into that, sadly. Anyway, getting distracted. So if you want Psychic move, you'd have to run special, but that's fine. And up until you get Zen Headbutt, and I'm talking Hattrem here. Of course, Hatterene has tons of, for example, Psycho Break at level 40 is Psychic type close combat at level 40. Yes, your attack is 30 points lower, 31 points lower than your special attack, but it doesn't matter when the move base power is so much stronger. So as the game progresses, you get more and more strong special options, so eventually the physical ones will get, overshadowed a bit, but even then you still have some unique physical options in regards to things like Temper Flare, which you only, your special equivalent to that is Mystical Fire, which is significantly weaker. Ruthless Temper Flare is 180 base power, while Mystical Fire is 70, so under half the power. So that's definitely useful if you want like a super strong fire move to one-shot something with a quick claw or just a bulkier Hatterene, whatever it is. And Temper Flare, of course, makes perfect sense given the dex entries and how they're all angry and shit. They get angry, so that's also why again they have Berserk. And then Hatena Wimp Out, pretty fitting baby ability for a lot of babies. Hatena also literally says word for word it runs away from stuff, I believe. They have Anticipation, which is enough justification in my opinion, but even outside of that, it talks about, yeah, like if it sends it a strong emotion, it runs away as fast as it can. So that's why they have Wimp Out. And then Tangling Hair fits all three of them pretty well because their whole thing is that they're like made of hair, I guess. So I think that's pretty cool. And also, Tangling Hair is even better on the pre-evos because they're actually faster, so you can run like a bulky set and then outspeed things after 1 or 2 Tangling Hair triggers with your Wish or Moonlight, so that's all really fun. And you've also got other debuffing moves like Disarming Voice and Mind Pulse, and your healing moves like Draining Kiss, so that's all really fun. Magic Powder, excuse me, hold on. Magic Powder is pretty cool. It removes their stab and can also make them weak to stuff like Hex plus, Hex Nuzzle Magic Powder or Magic Powder Brutal Swing. Whatever cool little combo you want to cook up is definitely fun to abuse there as well. And then, yeah, you got your Soul Crush, which is Fairy type Wicked Blow. And then you've got Radiant Edge and Subspace Tear, which are... So Radiant Edge comes from Secret Sword, so it's dealing physical damage despite being a special move. So it's like Psyshock, I guess, in that regard. And then Subspace Tear is also special Psychic Wicked Blow. So at level 60, though, that's at the end of the game. But they are incredibly powerful base power moves. 180 base power coming off 136 special attack. The downside being you can't click them twice in a row. However, on something that's this slow and bulky, it's not really a big deal anyway. It's more for Choice Scarf Pokemon or like Choice Item Pokemon, balancing that out. Ruthless Future Sight and Doomsire is also sick. Both of those will always crit, so those are 100 power, always critting, which means they become 225 power with Ruthless. So you can click Ruthless Future Sight at level 50 is relatively early, honestly, and then you can teleport out, and you get that super strong nuke attack the next turn. And I did test it, and yes, it does work, by the way. If you make it a guaranteed crit move, it does work. So it should be Ruthless. It is Ruthless boosted. Yeah, it's pretty much it. I mean, very straightforward at once. Not straightforward at all, actually, but straightforward once I explain it all. Also, some other good utility stuff like Will-O-Wisp fits them and their whole vibe. Same with Grimmsnarl. Yeah. I think I've covered pretty much everything else. I mean, obviously you got your Psycho Boost and Fairy type Psycho Boost and Radiant Outburst, which is pretty nice with like Tangling Hair, Psycho Boost, fucking a Jetpack or some weird tech like that. Although, I mean, I don't know why you would do that if you're just gonna kill them with them. Anyway, you get the point though. Tons of cool things you can cook up. Very fun to use Pokemon overall. Also, First Impression with Ruthless is really strong. Technically, even stuff like Psycho Cut and Shadow Claw, whatever, but that only works with Scope Lens to get the crit, so it's more niche. Not useless or anything, but definitely niche. What else is there? Yeah, First Impression, Ruthless, super strong, 135 power, bug. Cool little coverage move you can tack on once in a while. Takedown. Fighting, physical move, that's all fun. So yeah, thanks for listening. Let me know if you made it to the end. Leave a comment down below if you did. I appreciate it very much. And yeah, I'll be back for more coming up. Peace.